Okay, friends, these are my top 7 handstand tips. All right, first, stable gazing point. When you're setting up and when you kick, your eyes do not move. Stable gaze, stable body. I can't emphasize that enough. If you move your gaze, it's going to be so much harder to balance. It's really advanced to have a drop gaze in handstand. So you set yourself up, the hands are grounded, and you pick one spot. For most people, when we're first learning, the favorite spot is in between the index fingers. That takes your chest forward enough so it's comfortable and it makes it easier to balance. For some people with stiffer necks, between the wrists can be easier. Others can try between the thumbs. That's somewhere in between. A little bit straighter your body will be with your gaze between the thumbs. But for many people, that's harder to balance. For me, when I was first learning, I like to look way in front of my fingers, about a hand distance almost in the center of the mat. And even now, when I'm stuck in a photo shoot and I'm holding handstand for a long time, I know if I want to stay up for longer, looking forward more tends to help me find balance better. But again, to each his own. There's no one size fits all first learning handstand gazing point. Eventually, we like to look down between the wrists, but I recommend at first, if you just want to get up and have more hang time, try looking in between your index fingers. Okay, so here I am, set up. I'm looking at my spot. We want to push the floor away so there's length in the shoulders. And then what tends to happen is we lift and the core drops. That means when I'm kicking up, my whole center of body is not coming up with me. When we kick, the toes do not lead the way. Instead, the front ribs and the lower back lead the way. So the low back doesn't get thrown out. When we're kicking like this, not so good for here and not so good for lightness. So we want to feel a sensation almost like low boat. So my legs aren't extended out and lifting all the way up like a back bend. Instead, the legs are hollowing in. So instead of reaching up like this, I'm rolling the outer hip down and hollowing the thigh in. Low belly engagement, front rib engagement. Okay, so we have the stable gaze. We have the center of the body solid. Then from here, the third thing we want to look out for is that the legs don't get too stiff. If you're landing heavy, make sure that you're following through with your kicks up. There should be a sense of lightness, jumping. Okay, so if you have difficulty getting all the way up, I recommend you do box jumps and different things to follow through. The legs are engaged, but they're not stiff. There's a suppleness, a lightness to the strength to help conserve your energy and make you able eventually to be upside down and have conversations. So I have my stable gaze, I'm firm through my center, and when I kick up, there's a lightness to the legs. Next thing that happens, people tend to thrust their hips forward, compressing the low back. It can be easier for balance, but it's not good for the low back. So what we want to practice is using our core to help us stabilize upside down rather than compressing in the lumbar vertebra and just using that compression in the lower back to help us stay up. So there's 3 next moves. My 3 next best handstand tips come working away from that, finding lightness. So from here, you can bend one knee and lift a leg up, butt goes back, front ribs come in, tailbone reaches up. So that brings everything into a more streamlined stance. Okay, from there, once you feel straight, instead of just trying to hop, hop, hop off, pause, feel that the foot on the wall becomes less significant. So see if you can have enough clarity of thought to feel how heavy the foot is on the wall and to figure out what you need to do to make that foot lighter. Slow down your thinking, slow down your process, and you'll find balance faster. But if you do the manic hop, 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 you're just going to be stuck in a little mouse trap. In order to move away from that, you want to create some repeatability, and with that means creating awareness of what you're doing while you're doing it. So we have gazing point, 1. We have core, 2. We have lightness in the legs, 3. Then we have butt back, front ribs in, tailbone up. Now I'm really solid through my center. I'm going to now feel how heavy is the foot on the wall. How do I make the foot less heavy? You can practice using your hands, pressing the fingertips down, but remember the difference between balance and not is subtle. You don't even need to lift or straighten the leg. Just see if you can move it off of the wall just a millimeter. Okay, so you want to see if you can feel. That's number 7. Feel what balance means. Okay, and now I'm going to add just a couple extra little tips that will likely be useful to many of you. If you're in the habit of being here and then constantly falling back, what you'll want to do is practice engaging the muscles at the front of your hips, the hip flexors. So these guys pull the legs to the front body. That's going from a back bending shape to low boat pose. Okay, having a handstand that's slightly piked, that means with the legs slightly forward, but back, is a healthier stance than this, and it's also building a more sustainable practice. So see if you can practice taking the legs to the front of your body. Okay, that's the hip flexor work. That's especially useful for those of you who are bendy and tend to fall back into wheel a lot. Okay, another thing to be aware of is when you're kicking up, if you want to use the split leg to help you find balance, try not to let the pelvis drop so much. Practice that butt back work. Okay, also, if you're someone who tumbles out like that a lot, we want to practice rolling the inner thigh of the leg that opens up in. So the inner thigh engagement. Rather than being in your handstand like this, see if you can firm your inner thighs together a little bit more. So that means your legs, rather than doing crescent lunge with the hips wide, feel them hugging in. I'm upside down, and while I'm up there, instead of letting this hip open up, hugging it in. Okay? Now, when you're practicing learning how to fall, then that hip does open. If you're already falling pretty consistently, that's how we hold it together longer. If you're just learning how to fall, we're in our handstand, you look to one hand, and then you kind of just fall in that direction. The body goes in the direction of the gaze. So you look toward the hand that you prefer to fall in, and you allow your body to go there. Okay, I would love to be able to give you more technique, more to think about, but it's not practical because when we're falling, we literally have a split second. And so all you can do is look to one hand and maybe think knees to chest so that you don't go into the back bend. If your body can handle the back bend, falling into wheel is fine. I used to do that a lot. My lower back could handle it back then. But at the same time, if that's a fear for you and you feel like you're not ready to practice in the center of the room, you measure yourself a leg distance. The wall is there. I know it's there. I know it's there. Put my hands down. I'm going to tell myself when I kick up, I'm not going to use the wall. I'm not going to use the wall. Okay, 1, fixed gazing point. 2, I have my core engaged. 3, lightness in the legs. I kick up, I'm not using the wall. Front ribs, butts back, tailbones up. Okay, I'm here. And now I'm going to insist. My leg may want to turn out. Nope, I insist. It wants to, nope. I use my fingers. I use my sheer will and determination, but then, oh, no big deal. The wall's right there. Okay, coming off the wall, I'll reach with this foot, tailbone up, and then practice lifting. Whew. There's so much that you can do to service yourself in your inversion practice. So there's a whole lot to chew on. Feel free to revisit this video whenever you start to feel like you're lacking some inspiration. I also have so much more on the Marisha Dough Magic app. Handstands are one of my favorite ways to show my love to my students. If you are interested in learning more about handstands from me, I encourage you to check out the Marisha Dough Magic app.